Hey guys, it's Andres with Camp K9 Training. Today we are going to talk about a couple things. So if you guys are watching this video, it's because I'm either giving you a free lesson or I'm sending you this video to kind of fast track and get you guys the right information, the right knowledge to be able to be more hands-on during the lesson. So over the next couple minutes, I'm going to cover a lot of things, a lot of fundamentals. It's going to be my training philosophy, it's going to be collar placement, it's going to be leash management, there's going to be loading control, and then there's going to be also compliance levels. So there's a couple things, but this will help us get you guys to where I need you guys to be, so that when we show up for the lesson, then you guys already have this knowledge and I don't have to repeat this, and then you guys have information overload. All right, so we're going to dive straight into it. So training philosophy for me is pretty straightforward. It doesn't matter the age, the breed, the size, or the issue that we're working with. I train all dogs under the same 3 training pillars. Those are going to be timing, motivation, and consistency. So with timing, we only have 1.3 seconds for dogs to associate cause and effect. What does this mean? They have absolutely great memory. They can only associate cause and effect in a 1.3 second window. So if I tell my dog to sit and she sits, and I have to reward immediately. The example that I like to give clients is if you're in the living room and you tell your dog to sit and the dog sits, you run into the kitchen, you open up the treat jar, the dog comes running into the kitchen, they jump on you and you're like, good boy, good sit, and you just reward it, right? You just rewarded for the dog jumping on you and breaking the sit, not physically sitting. So it's super important that if you guys are going to reward and or correct your pup, you have to make sure you're doing this within 1.3 seconds for them to understand the cause and effect. With motivation, we can use positive, we can use negative. So with negative motivation, I can use a leash, I can use a pinch collar, or I can use an e-collar, right? E-collars are just TENS units if you guys have ever had physical therapy, and they allow me to use 100 different levels to communicate with the dog. Lower levels to give information, higher levels to stop the nonsense, the barking, the lunging, the reactivity, the aggression, any of that sort of stuff. And then lower levels to help just say, hey, but remember, you got to come back, right? So the way I treat negative motivation, whether it's an e-collar, a pinch, or a leash, I treat them like speeding tickets. So this means if I give you a 50-cent speeding ticket, you guys are going to be really annoyed. I give you a $10,000 fine, you guys are never going to want to drive again. But if I give you a $200 fine, you guys are going to slow down. Now, if I pull Bill Gates over and I give him a $10,000 fine, the guy's going to laugh and write a check on the spot. Every dog has a different level of negative motivation. Chaos here, she works very low on the e-collar. She works at about a level 9 out of 100. I have another Belgian that works at about a 12 out of 100, and then I also have a Husky that works at an 85 out of 100. So every dog is completely different. My goal with negative motivation is not to overcorrect the dog and shut him down, or undercorrect and be the nagging mom. I just want to be able to stop the behavior so that I can reward faster, right? When we're talking about rewarding our dogs, we're talking about positive motivation. So there's food, there's toys, and there's affection. So at the beginning stages, between 8 and 12, 8 and 14, 8 and 15 weeks, I think luring, I think clicker, I think a lot of food training is amazing, right? Because you can have the dog work for this food. You can have the dog lure and put them into a sit and guide them into a down and put them into a heel. There's a lot of things you can do with food at the beginning. Once the dog hits 16 weeks of age, then I move from food just to affection. The reason being is because I don't always want to carry a treat bag to bribe my dog into doing things. I just want you to do the behavior when I asked you the first time without me having to bribe you, right? When we're using balanced training, for every correction that you're giving, there must be a reward. And for every good behavior that I give, there also must be a reward. This is why you guys have seen me for the past couple minutes every so often come back and reward Chaos. She's giving me a good behavior, then it's my job to be able to tell her she's doing good by rewarding her, right? So there needs to be a balance. The number one thing I work with my clients is my clients tend to over reward and under correct. I want to bring up the corrections and just change the timing of the reward. So what does this mean? Most people give too much free rewards, right? You're on the couch, the dog comes up to you and you're like, hey buddy. You're in the kitchen, you're like, hey, you're gonna leave for work, and you're like, bye bud, have fun. You just gave the dog a bunch of $100 rewards. A $100 bill for this, $100 bill for this, $100 bill for this. And then you're like, hey buddy, can you sit for me? And the dog's like, nah, I don't think so. I just made 300 bucks for free. So if the dog comes up to you and you tell the dog to sit, if you tell the dog to get on a climb, if you tell the dog to do something, and then you're still able to reward. So the reward is still there, but the timing and the reason for it was completely different, right? So it's understanding, not changing how much affection you're giving, but just changing the timing, right? Changing the amount as well. I haven't sat here with Chaos and been like, yes, 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 because I'm over rewarding for a sit stay that I just asked her to do. Now, if I have her stay outside of PetSmart for 10 minutes, then absolutely, puppy party, because I don't want to build a robot. I want the dog to learn to behave. But there's times that I need you to behave, and there's times that you can go have fun. But the rewards and the corrections have to match, right? And then consistency is my third pillar. Consistency is key, right? We need to be able to stay consistent long enough to build habits, right? So the two analogies that I use with people is, if you go to the gym every day and you're eating healthy and you're going to the gym, then you're gonna keep your six-pack. But the moment you stop going to the gym and you start drinking beer and start eating donuts, then it's not gonna look so well for you, right? So I make a lot of changes with clients over a 1 lesson, over 5 lessons, over 1 week, over 2 week, over 3 week programs, and they're super happy about it. And then they call me a month later and they're like, Andres, my dog is worse than he was before. And my first questions are, how was your timing? How are you motivating your dog? Did you stay consistent? And every single time the answer is, well, you know, my dog was doing so good, I didn't think I had to follow up. Well, that's the issue. You didn't follow up. You didn't maintain your walks. You didn't maintain the structure. You allowed more freedom, and you allowed everything else. So there needs to be a balance for everything else, right? The other analogy that I use for clients and consistency on how fast things can go backwards is, think about how behaviors change in a classroom once the substitute teacher walked in, right? As soon as the substitute teacher walked through the door, everybody's behavior changed. Oh, we don't have to work today. We can go sit with our friends. We can chew gum. We can put our hats on. But if the substitute teacher says, hey, you know what? We're not going to do this today. Go back to your seat, spit your gum out, put your feet down. We're here to learn. Then it changes everything, right? So this is where a lot of the questions are when dogs board and train with me, or when I'm training the dogs. People are always saying, well, isn't the dog going to listen to you and not to me? Well, yeah, unless you're not following through and unless you become the substitute teacher. So stay on top of things, right? So that's my training philosophy, right? Let's talk about collar placements, right? So collar placement is probably one of the other big things I see with clients where they're utilized wrong. I see way too many collars that are too wide, too loose, and too low, right? So when I put collars on, I put them up, high, and snug. The higher the collars, the more control and power I'm gonna have. The lower the collar, the more control and power the dog's gonna have, right? So I see a lot of dog on harnesses for walking, right? A harness is not meant for walking. Think about what they're made for. Who puts them on, right? Huskies, sleds, they do a lot of pulling because a lot of the energy comes from the chest. So they're just gonna wanna pull. And I get why a lot of people put a harness on. It's because it stops the dog from choking, because they'll have a flat buckle collar on and the dog's just choking, and the owners feel like they're gonna choke their dog out, so they move on to the next best option, which is harness. Stops the choking, but it creates more pulling, right? So I'm not a fan of harnesses for walking. If you wanna have your dog pull things, absolutely, right? But if you wanna have a nice structured heel, a good walk, then get a collar that you can place up high. I like to use Herm Springers that are 3.0 millimeter, and again, they're super high up here because that's where we're gonna have all the control, right? Now, let's talk about leash management. So when we're talking about leash management, you guys are gonna hear me say this a lot through the lessons, and it's, I want the buckle to be hanging down. I don't wanna see the buckle up. I want the buckle hanging down. This creates a nice loose leash. And that's what I want to focus on. A loose leash, a buckle down, or even if you picture a letter J. That's what I want to see, because this means the dog is making the decision, right? I'm not here telling Chaos to stay while I'm forcing her to do this. This is another thing that I work with clients a lot, just relaxing your arm, right? They see another dog, they're like, oh my God, my dog is gonna lunge, and they're immediately grabbing this leash and they're putting tension. This is called the opposition reflex. The more I pull, the more the dog pulls. You combine that with a retractable, for example, it's terrible, right? The more the retractable's trying to pull in, the more that dog's trying to go. You put a harness on it, you just created, you know, a crazy story. So super, super important to be able to have a loose leash, buckle down, letter J. This is your form of guidance and communication, right? So during lesson 1, that's literally all we're gonna teach, is for the dog to understand leash, pressure, and guidance. get rid of the opposition reflex where I'm having to pull and put a bunch of pressure on the dog, and I just want to be able to put pressure forward, pressure back, pressure forward, pressure back, pressure up, and pressure down. Have the dog understand leash guidance. That's all it really is, right? So that's collar placement and that's leash management. Let's talk about loading control, right? So loading control is the trick to training any dog. What do I mean by this? What is loading control and what do we do with it? There's positive loading and there's negative loading. Positive loading is when the dog is super excited. This is dogs that are reactive with other dogs. This is the dog that you see when the doorbell rings. This is the dog that you see when people come through the door, when you're grabbing the treat jar, right? Like all of the super excited, super highly loaded dogs, that's what you're gonna see, right? Negatively loaded dog is a shy, scared, or fearful dog, right? These dogs are the dogs that hide during 4th of July and December 31st. These are the dogs that don't want to do anything with anybody else. They're hiding under a table. These are very shy and scared, fearful dogs. So if you build confidence on a negatively loaded dog, you're gonna have a nice, calm, collected dog. You have a highly positively loaded dog, you teach it to calm down, just to learn to be, just to chill, just to pay attention. They're gonna be nice, calm, collected, right? So it's all about loading control. Some of you may have dogs that have both ends of the spectrum. The doorbell rings and they're super positively loaded, and then fireworks go off and they're super negatively loaded. But it's working on each individual pup and building confidence on what they need. At the end of the day, I just want a dog to be nice, calm, collected so that they listen to me. Most dogs come to my program knowing already a sit and a down and a heel and a paw and a shake and all these cool things, but they can't do them under heavy distractions. So it does us no good. But it's learning to control the state of mind. Stop the smelling, stop the pulling, stop the lunging. Use the leash to be able to guide your dog into the positions that you want them, right? This is your form of guidance and communication. So don't get rid of the leash too soon. Build that confidence, and you're gonna have a lot more default eye contact instead of bribing your dog with treats to do these things, right? So that's loading control. The next thing is gonna be compliance level. So compliance level is you're gonna have a very compliant dog and a very non-compliant dog. Very compliant dog, you're gonna put leash pressure. You're gonna start teaching them about a pinch collar, about a leash, about an e-collar. They're gonna be like, oh, that's all I had to do? Why didn't you tell me? Piece of cake. Non-compliant dogs are what I call the 6-year-old kids at the grocery store throwing a fit for their piece of gum. I'm not gonna do this. I've never had to do this. You've never asked me to do this. I'm gonna roll around. I'm gonna try to bite you. I'm gonna try to bite the leash. I'm gonna try to do everything and everything possible. I'm gonna bark. I'm gonna whine. I'm gonna scream. I'm gonna do everything. I'm gonna hit the brakes, but I'm not doing this. All we want out of lesson 1 is for the dog just to learn to be. Whether they're super reactive and aggressive or they're just super negatively loaded and they don't know what to do, I just want the dog to learn to be. Just to follow the leash. That's all I want to achieve, right? So with the non-compliant dogs, the 6-year-old kids at the grocery store, I just want them to learn to follow the leash. For the very highly loaded dogs, I just want you to learn to follow the leash, because this is where everything starts, is the leash. That's how we guide and communicate with them, and this is how I can show them the world. But if they're pulling me at the end of the leash and they're already launching away, I can't do anything with them because their state of mind is somewhere else, right? When you guys are coming to these lessons, you guys are gonna have possibly muzzles, other collars, other harnesses, other flexies. I don't want you to try to come to the lesson with already a pinch collar, an e-collar, and a leash. I will provide everything for you. Please do not change the setup that you currently have. Bring in the harness or the halty or wherever else you have. Bring those into lessons and I'll set you guys up with the proper equipment. Don't try to change the equipment, or don't try to change anything as you guys or before you come see me, okay? Hope this information has helped, guys. It's included everything that I tell all my clients on lesson 1, so we'll be able to start working right away. If you guys have any questions, reach out. If not, we'll see you once we schedule your lesson. Thank you.
Yeah, girl.